Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, COS Indiana Live host. Hope you're all enjoying your holiday, Labor Day holiday weekend. This is our presentation this evening is a special Labor Day holiday presentation, and I hope you will enjoy it. We've got some special videos lined up for you this evening. So, but first of all, I'll let you know this is broadcast number 260, and we're still closing in and working on closing in on that 300 mark. This evening, we have for you tonight 3 videos that we've recorded, and we're going to present to you this evening in order. But let me tell you a little bit about each one of them. The first one is going to be from our own Gary Harbaugh, who conducts the Debt Avalanche series. And he's created a video entitled 35 Trillion and Counting. As you know, our government, our nation just exceeded the $35 trillion mark in our national debt. So Gary's got some comments that he wants to make regarding that. So we're going to play, first of all, we're going to play a short video from Gary addressing the $35 trillion mark and counting. Our second video is the main one this evening, and this is a special interview that I did with the state director of Wisconsin, Art Benhack, and some of his team members. Now, the Wisconsin team, you'll learn more about what they did as I introduce the video to you, or the interview. But Art and his team went to the Republican National Convention that was held in Milwaukee. So he went there, he and his team went there to engage with delegates to talk to them about convention of states. And it's really, really a special venture that they took on. Those of us that have been in COS for a long time, we've all done county fairs and other types of events. But this I thought was very unusual, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing about their experience at the RNC held in Milwaukee. Our final video this evening will be from Larry Hudson on the Meet the Founders series, and we're going to finally get to the final and last segment on Thomas Jefferson, our one of our founders and previous presidents. So Larry and I are going to wrap up that particular episode on Thomas Jefferson. So we'll be giving that to you this evening. Then once the videos are completed, then I'll come back and we'll close out this evening's broadcast and wish you a good night. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in a bit. Well, I hope you enjoyed our Labor Day special presentation this evening. And I want to wrap up how this broadcast and give you a little idea as to what's coming up. On our next broadcast on September 9th, we will be presenting to you another one of the January 6th support groups out there. As you know, we've kind of we've gotten into identifying some of these support groups, and this is another one called American Patriot Relief. And I think you're going to find this very interesting. The owners and operators of this particular organization, and we're going to have them on and interview them and give you an idea of what they're doing to be of support to the January 6th people that are affected by that. And also we will have our state director, Dale Tipton, will give us an update on the month of August, how we did here in Indiana in the month of August. Then following that, I want to let you know what's coming up on our next roundtable, which will be September 23rd. And the topic for that roundtable is going to be Article 2, Presidential Powers. And I think you're going to find that very, very interesting. So, Article 2, Presidential Powers. As usual, if you have any questions or any comments about our broadcast this evening, feel free to drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Folks, that is it for us this evening. Again, hope you enjoy your weekend, your holiday weekend, and we will be back with you live on September 9th. So have a good evening.
Hello, friends and fellow patriots. This is Gary with another installment in the Debt Avalanche series. You probably heard recently that the national debt surpassed $35 trillion. It's another milestone. In many ways, it's an important milestone, and yet it's just another in the long line of debt. You may not recall this, but in 2023, just last year, we surpassed 32 trillion in national debt, 33 trillion in national debt, and 34 trillion in national debt. We may well surpass 36 trillion before this year is over, and for years to come, we're likely to surpass 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 trillions of dollars every year in our national debt. It's not going to stop. And the reason it's not going to stop is Congress has no real limits on its spending ability and its spending power. First of all, its spending limits. There is a national debt ceiling, but every time we get near it, it's simply raised. It's like having a credit card with no limit, and you don't really have to make anything more than the minimum monthly payment, so Congress just keeps going. The other thing is that there's no limit to the things Congress can spend money on. So if we go back about 90 years ago, in the midst of the Great Depression, Congress and the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration came up with all kinds of ideas for how to solve the crisis, right? Never let a crisis go to waste. Use it as an excuse to increase the powers of government. So they passed a law that ultimately the Supreme Court in the Butler case ruled it was unconstitutional. But in the Butler case, they said something else. They said that Congress's spending was not limited to spending on the enumerated powers, that Congress could spend money on anything that Congress thought was within the general welfare of America. So that opened the door, opened the floodgates to any and every kind of spending you can possibly imagine. You may say, well, what do we really spend all this money on? For fiscal year 2022, 72% of all federal spending went for payments for individuals, whether directly or indirectly. You probably think, Social Security. No, Social Security, although huge, is a distant second to medical care. Medicare, Medicaid amounted to about 38% of all federal spending. Social Security was a distant second at 27%. The other big category that made up that 72% was student aid, college students primarily, I believe. But anyway, 72 cents out of every dollar was spent, on just, things that benefit individuals. Congress spends money to buy votes and to buy the loyalty and support of the donor class, the deep state class, the people who donate tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of dollars to political campaigns and political parties. That's why Congress spends the money. They got a blank check and they want to buy voters and they want to buy donors. Those two things. And you may think, when Donald Trump gets elected, we'll solve this problem. Donald Trump has already made a loud and clear pledge not to touch Social Security and not to raise the retirement age. He could change his mind about that, but I think it's improbable because I think there are too many other battles he's going to have to fight to really make a fight out of this one. So the debt is just going to keep going unless and until we get a convention of the states. One of the pillars of the convention of states movement is to put limits on federal spending. That might be as a percentage of GDP. It might also simply say Congress cannot spend money on anything other than its enumerated powers. Wow, that would be a huge thing that would knock out things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And in the event that that happened, we'd have to have a transition period to get back to that. But realistically, Congress is not going to limit spending. A president's not going to limit spending. The courts are not going to limit spending. It's up to you and I to push for a convention of the states to put limits on federal spending. Otherwise, the trillions are going to just tick by. We have to take the responsibility. It's our country. It's up to us, we the people. Don't give up the ship.
Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, Convention of States, Indiana, live. Folks, we've got a very, very special presentation for you this evening. We have a team from Wisconsin. Actually, there's a member involved in the team from Ohio as well. And I understand there was some people from Illinois involved in the team, but primarily Wisconsin. And the Wisconsin team back in July did something that very unusual. So many of us that have been in Convention of States for some time, we've all participated in information tables, county fairs, gun shows. I know I did car shows back when I was in the classic car hobby, presenting Convention of States and talking to people about Convention of States. So we've all experienced that. But the Wisconsin team did something I think very unique, and I think it's worthwhile to bring them on and let them tell their story. They attended the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee in July, and I wanted to bring them on this evening and to let them talk about their experience. I'm going to bring on the state director for Wisconsin right now, and we'll bring him on. Hello, Art.
Howdy. Hey, Dale.
Art Benhack, state director in West. How long you been state director there, Bart?
Let's see, going on 2 years now, 2.5 years or so.
Good.
Yeah.
Doing a fantastic job. Well, Art actually compiled a document to document their experience at the RNC. And we're going to be talking about that document. We're going to be going through it along with Art and a number of his from his team that attended that day. Let me just put up here the name of the document. It's Teamwork Makes the Dream Work, Engaging RNC Delegates. So, Art, I know that is document. It can be found on the conventionofstates.com website. If you go to conventionofstates.com, the website, and you click on the menu selection blog, you can go and find this document. So, but we're going to bring it on here and go through it and talk about some different aspects of it. So, Art, I think this is a very unique idea that you came up with. Were you the instigator of this whole idea?
Well, actually, our team talked about it, during state meetings. And I think we realized that it was important to engage important opinion leaders, because if you make opinion leaders aware of something, those leaders can spread it out throughout the group very quickly. So we thought we had a unique opportunity to, reach out to the Republican National Convention delegates and to just make them aware of Convention of States. I mean, that's really the goal.
Okay.
Hey, have you heard about Convention of States, and hand them a brochure. That was the idea. So
did you find? Well, we'll get into this as we go into
Sure.
the document.
Great.
Were many of the delegates familiar with Convention of States?
It was interesting. It was really a mix. Quite a few from Texas certainly were. There were states that were very, very knowledgeable. Louisiana, I thought the delegates from Louisiana were really aware. But then other delegates and also other passersby too. The delegates, I don't know if you know this, but the delegates could invite guests, and a lot of times they'd have 2 or 3 guests with them. So, many did not know about Convention of States, but I was surprised how many actually did.
So you were trying to talk to any delegate, right? Not just Wisconsin delegates. I mean, any delegate that you could talk to, right?
Exactly. As they were coming and going from restaurants and walking around, the Fiserv Forum convention area there.
Right.
There's, quite a bit of space and quite a bit of opportunity to talk to folks. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's bring on your team and let's introduce them. Let's bring on this gentleman here, Ed.
Hello.
How are you, Ed? And you live in Ohio, right?
I do. I'm a regional captain for the state of Ohio.
Okay, good. So Ed was part of the team, and let's bring on another member here, Dean Jeffrey.
Yep. Hi, Dale. Thanks for having us. I live in Wisconsin, and I'm a district captain and a state content writer.
All right. How many state content writers do you have in Wisconsin? We have a hard time finding them in Indiana.
So far, we got 2.
That's about how many we have too.
Yes.
So
they're very valuable.
Dean, you can feel free to write for our newsletter anytime you want.
Oh, Art's got plenty to keep me busy.
Does he? Yeah. Okay. All right.
And you should know that Ed and his wife drove over 500 miles from east of Columbus, Ohio, to get to the.
Is that right? Really?
The convention.
Wow.
Yeah. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Very. We got some.
Well, Art did an awesome job keeping us informed, detailing the plan, telling us where and when to be. He made it very easy for us.
Yeah, I think people are gonna, when we get into this document, you're gonna see that this was very well planned out. So now, quickly, Ed, how long you been in Convention of States?
I've only been doing this for about 4 years now.
4 years. Dean, how long you been in?
About the same amount of time, 4 years.
4 years. Okay. Let's bring on the last team member here, Vince.
Vince.
Hello.
How are you?
Okay.
And what do you? Now you've already told me you're kind of jack of all trades, didn't you say?
Yeah, that's what I put on my business card. I just thought I do a little bit of everything. Regional captain, district captain, and we also have a position in Wisconsin that's called follow-up team.
Okay.
The follow-up team does the follow-ups, and in process, we do it by teams rather than having district captains do it.
Okay. All
But
right.
I'm better at just scrounging around and doing whatever comes up.
Good. Always good, Art, to have a jack of all trades. I'll tell you, always good to have that as part of your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How long you been in Convention of States, Vince?
Since 2017.
17. All right. Good. All right, guys. Well, listen, let's bring up then the document, and we'll get to looking at that. Hope everybody can see that. All right. So let's get in down to, now that we've introduced everyone, one of the first things, and I'm going to show a picture here. Are all of you in this first picture?
No.
No, not quite.
Not quite?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was, just an informal picture we took So one of the problems with this event was that we didn't have a lot of money, so we couldn't buy a venue and wine and dine people like all the convention goers were doing. So our team stepped up, and way back in March, we put in an application and paid $87 to rent a parks picnic area, and that's the picnic area at Estabrook Park,
Okay.
picnic area number 5. And it worked out really well because there's good parking right off the side of that picnic area. And Estabrook Park is just 4 miles north of the Fiserv Forum. The first picture there was the Fiserv Forum, and that's the main venue for the RNC convention.
Okay, well, Art, you might as well let's get this right up front here. That's you in the Uncle Sam suit right there. Am I right?
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about what prompted you to do that.
Well, you know what? I don't exactly remember what the genesis of the thought was, but I always kind of associated this event with trying to stand out and make convention estates look well, but also attract attention. And the Uncle Sam suit certainly did that. Everybody that saw it would often say, "Hey, way to go," or "Hey, Uncle Sam," or they wanted to take a picture with Uncle Sam. So it worked out really well.
I bet it did. I bet it did. I think that's very, very, very unique. Very unique. Well, one of the things that we wanted to talk about first, and you cover this in the document here, the kind of responses that you got from various people when you asked them about, have you heard about convention estates? So you want to talk a little bit about the kind of responses you got?
Sure. As a matter of fact, so our idea was just to engage folks, delegates and alternative delegates and delegate guests as they were walking around the convention area and campus, and just to make them aware of convention estates. And that was really the goal. So, everybody had their own line. Mine pretty much was, "Hey, have you heard about convention estates?" and extend a brochure out to them. I used Washington is Broken brochure quite a bit, the 1/3 page brochure.
Okay.
And a lot of the delegates would, say, "Yes, I know all about convention estates," or "No," here, and just take the brochure. And then we were on to the next one. So it was, very short encounters.
Well, and you go into detail in the document about the different types of responses that you got. But I noticed another area here that you addressed was about happy people. Was that the kind of the atmosphere that you found there?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah, it really was. I mean, the convention was, I thought, well planned out, and it was. There was a lot of uncertainty going into it because the assassination attempt on President Trump had happened just a few days before.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's right.
It was, the planning with this event was a little bit tense too, because we really didn't know what to expect. Were the crazies going to show up and try and wreak havoc? So our thought was to plan as much as possible to try and give us alternative options when the time came up. So kind of win through planning in a way.
If I could add, we talked about the Uncle Sam suit, but that thing was worth $1 million. People walked up to Art. The rest of us were trying to walk up to other people, but people were coming to him looking for a photograph with Uncle Sam or whatever. And it was such a great opening to have you heard about convention estates. And like he said, we got everything from the New York brush off, they didn't even look at you, to, great conversations with a couple legislators and delegates about, how they're trying to fight to support convention estates where they're at. And then, of course, people who knew nothing about it that we spent time educating. So it was very effective in my mind in that respect. Just keeping it out in front of people, reinforcing what they already knew or educating them if they didn't know.
Art, you might be a social media icon and not know it. People taking their picture with you and posting it on social media. So,
well, that was kind of interesting because the press was in full regalia at this event, and they interviewed Ed and myself. Swedish TV interviewed me, but they would always ask questions about, are you for Trump, sort of thing, and my response was always, hey, we're a non-political organization. We're all about, we're nonpartisan. We're all about the Constitution. So, and then I'd explain a little bit about Article 5. So I don't know if it got on any Swedish TV or anything, but it was an interesting event, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about security. I know certainly in watching the convention on the television, they talked about security a great deal, and certainly shortly after the assassination attempt on Trump, security was a top issue there, I'm sure. And who wants to say a few words about this? This is the picture. Dean, do you have something to say on that?
I'll take that one, Dale.
Okay.
So the reddish pink area that you see on the map there is about a 2-block by 6-block long area that was a secure zone. So there was a 10-foot high fence that they had erected around that perimeter. So that's where most of the delegates spent their time, inside there. Now, we didn't have access to get inside the fenced area. So we spent our time in the yellow area, which was the outer security area.
Okay.
So there was barricades up around that area, so vehicles could not go past and into the yellow area unless they had a permit. But the yellow area had restaurants and whatnot where delegates would come out of the secure zone and go out to eat and whatnot. So that was the area that we tried to focus on, in particular the east side and the south side in the yellow zone.
So the yellow zone had barricades all around it, you said, right?
All the traffic was blocked except for specific points.
Well, that sure looks like a pretty big area.
It was huge. Yep.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So there was literally thousands of police officers patrolling the area. It was unbelievable. It was well done. Well done.
Yeah, I think they had 10,000 police there from all around the country, Maryland.
Really?
Yeah, police from all over the place. Yeah.
Now, was your picnic area in this yellow area, or was it outside? It was outside that.
It was north up the river, up the Milwaukee River, about 4 miles.
Oh, okay. All right.
So all we had to do was drive down Humboldt Avenue, which just follows the river pretty much, to get to it. And what we do is we drop people off and for the security zone. But Dean drove down from Oshkosh, it's over 100 miles twice, to help scout out the security zones. And right up until the night before, we didn't think they'd put a fence around that yellow security zone. But Kim Strohriegel and I drove through that the night before, and we saw all the security that they put up. It was amazing. They put up fences all around that yellow zone.
I wonder if Chicago's done anything to this extent.
Chicago's demonstration area is 3 miles away from the DNC, from the where the convention's being held. So it's their demonstration area is much further away than the demo area here. I also attended the debate in the fall of 2023 and on the outside, and it was at the Pfizer Forum, and they didn't put up any fences for that in that yellow area, but they had a fence around that red area. So that's pretty much what we were expecting. So it was Dean really did a great job scoping it out and getting as much information as possible.
All right. I want to skip down to the engaging delegates. And I know that was one of your main objectives there, right? To engage with as many delegates as. So any of you got any experience that you want to share in that respect with engaging delegates?
What we found out was on the first day, there was so much security that we had a hard time kind of finding delegates. And my hat's off to the Illinois team because they came up on Monday and they were very professional and wonderful about it. It was also a super hot, muggy day. But after Monday, we realized that we needed to focus on the Mater restaurant area, which is on the east and southern part of that security zone there. And so we would make it a beeline for there. And it seemed like a lot of delegates were, eating lunch and dinner all the time throughout the day there. So that worked out well.
Okay, let's talk about then this free speakers platform. That seems to be. Did all of you participate in that?
Ed, do you want to take that?
I think most of us had some opportunity to either speak or help out whoever was speaking. Truthfully, they designed the free speech speakers platform to keep the protesters away from the main area, I think is the general idea. Yeah. And so most of the other protesters didn't even bother once they realized where it was. It was pretty far out of range from the delegates, and very few people passing by. But again, kudos to the Wisconsin team. They learned about the speakers platform in early June, and they gave us all the information we needed. And we had COS speakers lined up every day, sometimes 2 a day, to speak at the speakers platform. It didn't turn out that there were very many people there to hear those speeches, but it was energizing to us, and it was interesting to hear other COS people's take on why they're engaged. And of course, there were some people that heard what we were saying. So,
yeah.
Did anybody record any of these speeches? Was anybody recording anything? Or I know you got some good pictures here, but I
had as life happens, my phone actually went out, and I had to buy a cheapy phone. So until my insurance kicked in, so I wasn't able to record anything.
Okay, all right. Well, and this is one of your team members here, right?
Yes, that's Allison. Allison's one of our state content writers, and she gave a great speech. It was a great experience, I think, listening to everyone talk, and
okay,
and each person prevented a leftist from trying to harangue the delegates.
Wow.
I think one of the things that turned out as a spur of the moment thing was we recognized that there wasn't a large audience there. So we tried to be adaptable, and Ed actually gave a wonderful speech, and he was talking like there was a giant crowd there.
Yes.
We made up an angle that looked to where it didn't really show the crowd. So as far as anybody looking at the video could tell, there was a big crowd. So we had a good time doing that and got a few laughs, and who knows, maybe that'll be useful in the future.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Dean, I can say the state content writing team sure showed up for this event. Didn't they?
Yeah, 100% attendance.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention that the Illinois team really was fantastic. They came up on Monday, and that was the day we were trying to get our bearings, trying to adjust and find delegates. And in that process, we were kind of set in a group setting at the picnic area, and we're talking about things. And it kind of evolved into a bit of a seminar with Barry Newman, the Illinois State Grassroots Coordinator, giving us a really nice download on their program they call 15 Minutes to Freedom. It's a way they recruit, and we're going to adapt it to Wisconsin, and really enjoyed learning all about it. Ed also gave us a lot of information too about the legislative action that he has conducted in Ohio, and gave us some great ideas. And I think, as it turned out, meeting as a group just turned out to be fantastic. I mean, I really look forward to other meetings like this, where we can get together with other folks and share information and make the dream work.
Good.
Yeah, just to add to that, Dale, I think that was the highlight of this whole event, was engaging with the other states. Ed was there, and the team from Illinois. That was great.
Yes,
I can relate to that, Dean. Yeah, I can relate to that when we have events where other people from other states are involved. Yep, that's important. I'm just thumbing through some. We're about out of time here, and I'm just thumbing through some of the other pictures.
I got to mention Kim Strohriegel, our grassroots coordinator in Wisconsin. She did a really great job. She and Riley, her daughter, and really her family, Michael Strohriegel too. They all helped. Kim focused on the food, and Dean actually got a generator going, and so we had brought nice hot brats the whole time. So
really, that's nice.
Yeah. Big kudos to Kim. Right now, as we're recording this, Kim's in the hospital. So if you could say a prayer for her, we'd really appreciate it.
All right. Well, guys, I'm just kind of thumbing through some of the other pictures on this document. Again, the document's very long. I wish we had time to go through it page by page, but we don't. So once again, I think we'll wrap it up here. Like I said, we're short on time now, but once again, I want to congratulate you all on what you did here. I think it's just a outstanding effort that you did in representing Convention of States. So
thanks so much for having us, Dale. We really appreciate you recording us on Indiana Live.
My pleasure. And again, I think you've set the stage for I think other states to follow in your footsteps. So great. Anybody have any closing comments you want to take a little time to say before we wrap up here?
I just want to compliment the Wisconsin team for the level of organization. They were well prepared. The idea of the park a couple miles away, you didn't have to worry about driving into that mess around the downtown. It was just all very well organized, and as it has already been stated, it was just a blast meeting these other folks and learning from them, throughout a couple of days. So it was great.
Very good.
Thanks for joining us, Ed. Appreciate it.
Well said, Ed. Yes.
Very good.
And my closing comment would be, great teams make great dreams. And thanks, John Maxwell. Teamwork does make the dream work.
Very good, Ed. Art, excuse me. So, all right. That's a wrap, folks. And once again, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And I think it's an inspiration to all of us in Convention of States. So thank you very much for doing this for Convention of States. So
thank you, Dale.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Will do.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move on. How about the accusation that Jefferson was a racist who opposed equality for blacks in our country? That's a good one.
Yeah. And it's interesting. The latest book I read makes the source of that accusation the 3/5 clause of the Constitution. You remember the 3/5 clause?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Of course, Jefferson, he wasn't at the Constitutional Convention. He was in Paris. He had nothing to do with the 3/5 clause. So I don't know how they tie him and the 3/5 clause together and make him a racist, but that's what's happened. But actually, the 3/5 clause, if you think about it, it was not a pro-slavery clause. It was actually an anti-slavery clause, because without it, the South would have had more representation in Congress than the North if they counted the slaves as individual people.
Right.
One person making up part of the population of that state. So you could argue that the 3/5 clause would indicate that it's anti-slavery, not pro-slavery. It's simply untrue.
Yeah. Okay. Well. What about the fact that Jefferson held slaves? He never released any. Even in his will at his death, didn't I read that Washington released his slaves at his death? How about that?
Yeah, you're right on both counts. The short answer that I can find is Virginia state law. When Washington died, and we'll cover this in some detail in our next look at the founders, Virginia allowed slave owners to emancipate slaves upon their death. That was law at that point in time when Washington's death occurred. But that law was changed approximately, 5 to 6 years later, and that was stricken, and the practice was prohibited. And emancipation was made really almost impossible economically, because it required slaveholders to support and maintain the slaves being freed, whether it was an individual or a number of slaves. It also required the slaves to leave the state, making the situation even more difficult to keep track of. And you've got to remember that Jefferson drafted an anti-slavery clause for the Declaration of Independence. I don't think people really realize this unless they've read about it. And because it was ultimately deleted, it didn't get in the Declaration. And he also wrote an anti-slavery position in the Virginia Constitution that would have prevented slavery within that state. And that provision was also rejected by the state convention that adopted the Constitution. So Jefferson's anti-slavery proposal for the Northwest Ordinance, on the other hand, was accepted by Congress, thereby requiring, Minnesota, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, and last but not least, Indiana, to become anti-slavery states. So in fact, later on, while a member of Congress, Jefferson proposed legislation even that after the year of 1800, I believe it was, of the so-called Christian era, I believe is how they phrased it, there will neither be slavery nor involuntary servitude in any of the said states. But that bill failed by a single vote. So you can't see Jefferson as being racist in any of these attempts on his part. It's true, early in his political career, he did on several occasions question in writing, in letters that people can read, that blacks might be inferior. He did say that. And with the passage of time, though, he readily admitted that his personal dealings with blacks at the time were slaves. They had been denied an education. They didn't speak their language very well. And that had tainted his view on their capabilities to govern themselves as freemen. So I think at least in my summation, Jefferson was not a racist, was actually a bold, staunch, consistent advocate and defender of blacks, and he sought their emancipation and further, he wanted to further their civil rights. There was not a racist bone in his body later in life, perhaps early on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's cover the last two allegations. First, that he founded a secular university, and along the same lines that he advocated a government totally separated from religion. How do you answer these allegations?
Okay. Again, from what little I've read, his idea for the University of Virginia, which is where this is generated from, was to be free of any single denominational influence. Remember, we talked back just a few minutes ago about his association with primitivist Christianity, and they did not like denominational.
Right. Right.
Okay, so I think this is where this comes from again. Remember, many, if not most of the universities at the time of Jefferson were founded and controlled by one particular denomination.
Okay.
Congregationalists, for example, started Harvard, Yale, Dartmouth. I think Anglicans were credited with starting William and Mary. Presbyterians started Yale, if I've got it correct, or Princeton. Presbyterians started Princeton, and Baptists started Brown, just to name a few. Okay, Jefferson wanted a school that would be what we might say today trans-denominational. His university would reflect non-preferentialism. He didn't want them to be associated with any one denomination. Had nothing to do with removing religion from the school, but to making it more, I don't know, ecumenical perhaps in nature. The university staff was not composed of Unitarians, as some have charged. It did not bar religious instruction, as some have claimed. But yes, it did have chaplains, contrary to some other allegations. But it was not anti-religious.
Okay.
Never meant to.
All right. All right. Well, okay. What about the desire to see a government totally separated from religion? Now, is this where this separation of church and state came from?
Exactly. Yeah, I think it does primarily. Separation. I remember reading somewhere, and I don't remember the source, but they called for separation of the mitre and the crown. And back in those days, the mitre was the church and the crown represented the state. And it goes back long before Jefferson, back to the Reformation age, I think, back as far as 1600s. And this doctrine centered on preventing the state from taking control of the church. Remember Henry VIII? A Catholic? He took control of the church. We never want that to happen. In fact, that's what the religious clause of the First Amendment is all about. It doesn't mean that religion is to be separated from the state. What it really means is that the state cannot establish and then control any religion for that state, or in our case, for that country. So right. Jefferson was just a wholehearted supporter of that policy. And the wall of separation that you mentioned, the infamous wall of separation between church and state, that phrase is not found in the Constitution, although a lot of people think it's in there. Nor did Jefferson ever intend that it should be. As you well know, I think, Jefferson used that phrase in a letter to a group of Baptists oh golly, back during his first term, shortly after he was elected.
I remember that. I remember that. It came from this letter. Yeah.
The Danbury Baptists, and they were concerned that the church was going to be swallowed up by the state. And he wanted to disarm them of that. And so he wrote, they had written to him, say they were troubled that the Constitution appeared to say, that the government granted individuals their right to religious freedom, but it inferred that religious liberty wasn't an inalienable right guaranteed by God, but that it was a government right. So that meant it was man-given and, in essence, alienable. Doggone it. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She got it. She's getting it as quick as she can, Dale.
No problem.
So Jefferson responded in his letter, and I'm gonna have to read this because it's a little bit too long. But he wrote back in his letter assuring them that they had nothing to fear. So he said, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declare that their legislature should, quote, make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, right there in the First Amendment, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Adhering to this expression of the supreme will of the nation, restore to man his natural right, convinced that he has no natural rights in opposition to his social duties. So if you want to construe that Jefferson wanted to take religion and divorce it entirely from the government, from the state, then you can read that into that. But that's not how I see it. That's not how I read it. He wanted to assure them that this was not going to happen, that the government could not, in the First Amendment, they were precluded, and in the Declaration of Independence, the same phraseology, they were precluded from establishing and controlling, therefore, a state religion, or a country's religion. It just couldn't be done. So I think, as you can see, he wasn't proposing a secular principle to banish religion from the public square or something of that sort, which is where we find ourselves today. He was really assuring them that the Constitution was there to keep the government from violating their inalienable right to religious freedom as expressed in the First Amendment. The separation phrase has been taken out of context, in my view, used by those who seek to paint Jefferson, as a secularist. Nothing could be further from the truth, in my view. And his record of including, advocating, really, even promoting religious activities in the public square is apparent for everyone to see. His words and actions throughout his private and public life clearly demonstrate that he was not anti-religious or a secular humanist. Okay. So this pretty much ends my input, unless you have another question you want to raise on Jefferson. And I should end perhaps on a note of explanation. I said at the outset of this episode that I'm pro-Jefferson, and as a result, somewhat biased in what I've said tonight. I think he was a remarkable man. Whatever his warts might have been, big or small, I think. I hearken back to the comments, if you recall, I made a quote or referenced a quote John Kennedy made at a dinner at the White House back in the 60s when he honored a group of Nobel Prize winners. And I didn't read the whole quote, but it concluded with this. He told them that they were an august body, if you recall, and he'd not seen so much intelligence gathered at the White House except for that one evening when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. You remember that?
Yes.
Well, then he went on to say, someone once said that Thomas Jefferson was a gentleman of 32 who could calculate an eclipse, survey an estate, tie off an artery, plan an edifice, try a cause, break a horse, and dance the minuet. A man of many, many talents. Yeah, so I happen to believe, as JFK, despite the controversies that we've discussed, I think his role in shaping our young republic and his commitment to the ideals of liberty and democracy have secured his place as, I think, one of America's most revered founding fathers.
Yeah,
he was and remains an American icon.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I think that covers pretty much the allegations that that you've alluded to in the first two parts, and certainly here in part 3 of Thomas Jefferson. So many of these I wasn't aware of them, and I'm sure my guess is our viewers and listeners feel the same way. Once again, we really do appreciate your delving and researching into this and giving us the explanations, and I think I have to agree with you that Thomas Jefferson was most definitely one of the most remarkable and accomplished founding fathers. No doubt about that. Well, you mentioned previously that the next episode, episode 3 of Meet the Founders, is going to be on George Washington. So looking forward to that for sure. And my guess is that's probably going to be a very long one as well. Wouldn't you think?
Well, there's an awful lot written on George Washington, that's for sure. I've read several books. He was quite an individual for someone who had no education. It's just really mind-boggling.
Yeah,
what he knew and what he said and what he did. He's an interesting one too.
Oh, I'm sure.
I look forward to it.
Good, Larry, and looking forward to that. And I don't know if you hear my phone going off here, but someone's trying to send me a message.
I thought maybe you had a train coming close by.
It kind of feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Larry, once again, thank you very much for doing this, and look forward to George Washington.
I'm working on it.
Thank you.
You bet. Take care.